And in our vision, water and soils are in play to be equally as important because of the effects they have on each other, as well as the back and forth to their health, as far as delivering food, delivering nutrients, positive and negative, the creation of a highway when you have sediment that gets dislodged or junk that gets in the water or chemicals getting in the water, and the way they actually ride each other or repel or attract, just depending on how you manipulate them. And just as a venue onto why we're doing what we're doing, I've been in the industry going on almost 28 years. I'm a certified professional of erosion and sediment control for a large chunk of that. I've ran companies, I've invented products, I've sold products, I've trained engineers, I've created divisions of distributorships and seen it from a lot of different angles. And I've also seen what has enabled the Band-Aid solutions, the let's get an inspector to walk by, the cosmetic approaches that have been okayed, which there's multiple reasons as to why that's happening. What I'm excited about is the last 3-4 years, I've started conversing and communications with a lot of really cool companies that have been really successful in their niches, whether it be industrial, whether it be ag, whether it be municipal, whether it be, the list goes on, mining. And we're seeing a real cool collaboration coming together of like-minded companies looking for a solution first. So if there's a water or a soil contamination or problem or issue, bring it to us and we find the solution for you. That's probably 3 or 4 layer fold where you could have options on how you approach it, depending on your time frame, regulations in your area, and so on. There's a lot of factors in it when we get deep. But our water is a package of delivery systems and media to grab nitrates, phosphates, carbons, hydrocarbons, the list goes on. And the experts and entrepreneurs behind that to keep continuing developing solutions to deal with the problems we have now and that are coming in the future. I'm going to do a quick spin on Flo-Water, if that's possible with me. And again, if you have questions, please jump in. The rain falls, the earth moves. There's a lot of steps in between that. And I look at each one of these ports, storm drain inlets, as the ideal spot for nutrients to go in. They're like, hey, I can go underground and go to the water. For trash, for contaminants, for junk, for debris. But I also look at it as the perfect place to control that stuff at the source to a point when you're looking at it from a municipal or industrial point of view. Stop it from getting in that underground infrastructure protection. Eliminate the spending happening now on repair, cleanouts, clogging, plus the remediation you have to do downstream, and it gets more expensive the further down you go. And spend the money now so you eliminate the problem. And get it to the point where that's not happening and you don't have to spend a lot more coming here. And we have solutions for that. So again, from source to sea, let's take care of the problem. A big push on basins has been part of the issue, or not issue, part of the solution, which is great. But the issue is you have to have maintenance plans in anything where you're going to be filtering water, containing water, accepting water, and so on. Sorry, I was admitting one more person. And so a lot of those sit there, get overfilled, and it becomes a teacup overflowing, just like on ag fields where you're adding phosphates, nitrates, this stuff into the field, herbicides, pesticides, and the cup keeps overflowing. But I'm getting off track there. Different sediment takes longer times to settle. So bioswales, rain gardens, etc., do deal with a large chunk of it. But when you're talking the fines, when you're talking where the nitrates and phosphates are riding and the carbons and hydrocarbons, we need more aggressive solutions. That's where you're getting into the colloidal size. It takes 755 days to resettle each time it gets disturbed. It's just a process. Sediment and erosion control are both key pieces in water quality. And that's why lately we've been getting projects, and I get these maps of 2 lakes in a huge development and the water report on it where there's alkalinity issues, there's nitrates, phosphates, other contaminants that we need to remediate. And I'm sitting there thinking, I can clean that up, done, but it's all going to come in again, and it's all going to come in again. So my mind keeps stepping back and stepping back. And the experience I have in that soft armor reinforcing industry where you deal with like Scour Stop or Pyramat or Landlock 300 or some of the turf reinforcement mats that stabilize ground with the root structure, environmentally friendly, biological solutions. That's awesome because you're keeping the soil in place upstream. You're developing vegetation that gets stronger and reinforced, so you have that ability to keep capturing nutrients along that pathway via biofiltration and such. So the cool thing, you're all still with me, correct? Are you all still with me?
Yeah,
Yes.
I'm on board.
Awesome.
Yes. Yes.
I get going and I just like to check. The cool thing about that is now let's start
at a time.
5 miles out. Let's pick the spots where we can start there and work our way in and control what's coming off the fields and the ditches and everything else, but also what's going in the inlets and stuff that are going to these lakes that, heck, Iowa just got a report that their 10 biggest lakes in central Iowa have capacity issues because they're half filled. Well, they're half filled because everything's coming in from miles out. So let's remediate, let's deal with that stuff in the lake, which we can do and we will, but let's solve the issue long term so we have sustainable solutions. And that's what's really cool about what we're doing here. It's we have our waters and we have our soil, and together we're going to be approaching that from soft armor, water quality control, and the nutrient management solutions that are out there and needed. Sorry, I keep having to add people. The main reasons for construction practice failures have been pretty widespread, but the main premise on those is they're technically deficient. Sediment traps aren't. Sediment basins have a little higher success rate. Silt fence to a point. Inlet protection on the old standards. But innovation has taken it to another level, and I'm going to show you where the best of the best is here when you look at reusability, when you look at cleaning out, when you look at nutrient management, the ability to combine different media to deal with the issues that are in play. And that's where it gets really cool as we explore the options there. Regulations have changed. Recently, they had another one released talking about the Indian reservations and the oil practices and pipeline and new regulations on more stringent stuff. But everybody's seeing the value of water and how we have to protect it. Soil in the water, sediment. It's dirty. It carries things with it like phosphates, phosphorus, etc. The list goes on. But it's the primary non-point source pollutant and the primary factor in deterioration for the surface water quality. It causes clogged stream channels, increased bank erosion, meandering, and flooding. We get that. What it's doing to our environment and the aquatic habitat is just, it's just sickening. Funding's there. And you get into our solutions, and I'm going to fly through some of these, but our pump and tube dewatering bags are flowing 2.5 times faster than the general big black bags that are out there. We're not grabbing that water and let it sit there while it slowly seeps out and hope the stuff sits. We're getting 91.6% of the sediment capture rate. So as that water's releasing and you're grabbing what's in it, it's going to fill 30% on its own. But now you can run manifolds and run 4 or 5 bags at once. Turn one off while the rest keep running. You've eliminated downtime. You're filling those bags 70, 80% now, and you can stack them for shoreline reinforcement or repurposing back into the circularity on it, depending on the contaminant. But this project right here was Stillwater, Minnesota, under the bridge that connected Minnesota and Wisconsin. So every eye was on it, and I got the reports that show how wonderful it worked and how we got the NTU down to 14. Which is awesome. And in that solution right there, this is the cool thing about where our waters is going. Biostar flocculants, the chitosan, was used in conjunction with this in a dry formula. So when the water came through our bags, it's releasing 2 parts per million that's taking those fine sediment and taking their electrical charge that's repelling, reversing it so they attract and make that sediment larger, and you're grabbing more, and the contaminants that are riding with it. So again, it's combining some really cool stuff out there, media delivery system, to get the solutions needed to deal with that high visible project. There's another spot on it. That would have taken a whole nother barge just like the others. So footprint reduction, flow faster, reusability, capture more, enable media. You can also here, when the pipe's running in, have a PVC Y tube and meter inject liquid flocculants, liquid like Naturasolves, biologics, where you have the bacteria and the fungi eating the nitrates and phosphates, et cetera, digesting it into the outer cellular wall, not making it accessible anymore, and coming with some really cool, neat approaches that Jennifer will expand on in a little bit. We have all the stuff you need. It's approved everywhere I've approached. Hooks with a D-ring and a strap, so it's easier. You don't have to chain it, rope it. Elevate it, you get faster flows. They just work better. I have videos. I don't have time for that, and I'm sorry, but it's all on my website, aplenty. They've done testing on it at different places. How can it work that way against the standards that have been out there? And the general consensus is if treating the same volume of contaminated discharge water with similar sediment concentrations and characteristics, the woven bags, which are the pumpet tubes, are capable of maintaining a higher flow rate for a longer period of use compared to the non-woven. Our woven fabric has a built-in poly scrim like a hairnet, which gives it the structural stability to take advantage of the high filtering while giving it the structural strength it needs to enable it from performing and not breaking. This is over on the East Coast on that platform that's designed for the other size bags. That pump's running all the time straight into the bay, and you can see now split it, run 4 or 5 bags, enable that to run without shutting down on the same footprint that they were using 1 bag at a time on. And that's our 80-inch by 20-foot bag running on that pump full, which is good. You saw the video? Good. The sizes here, 20-inch by 5 foot would handle a 2 or a 3-inch pump instead of 6 foot by 6 foot or 10 foot by 10 foot. Our 20-inch by 10 foot or 20-inch by 20 foot would handle up to a 4-inch pump running full instead of 10 foot by 15 foot. Our 40-inch by 10 foot or 20 foot will handle up to 6-inch pumps running full instead of 20 foot by 30 foot. So you can see the difference on site, in warehouse, in transportation. The positives are endless. I've got it showing comparisons. It's all on my website. Any questions on the pumpet tubes? You are still there, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Awesome. Now I'm going to talk about inlet protection. And this is where I get really excited because I just got my 3rd patent approved on what's the best of the best now. And when you look at what's been done over the last 30, 40 years, there's been a lot of really cool progress, but with the same restrictions in place. If it's sticking above, you're going to have issues, whether it's maintenance not being done and it falling in, whether it's them poking holes in it because it's too difficult. And with the safety standards, we see why. Or designing something really, really performing well, rebuilding that inlet in essence, like on the middle left. And that Flex Storm Prime or Pure or whatever they're calling it now is really a cool product, but it costs too much and nobody would. So they lessened the product and came out with the Flex Storm Lite, which is the upper left one, which has its limitations, but it's still being sold on that spec. So that's something that, again, a lot of cool things happening in this industry, whether you look at it one way or another. This is the one I was discussing that has the gap between the coverage and the inlet, so low flows aren't being taken care of. They're using shovels to clean this out, leaving that cake layer in the bottom so it's a teacup overflowing down and in, and again, down to the underground infrastructure or rivers down below. If you leave it in and don't take it out, because contractors aren't paid for removal, so they're not going to go do it voluntarily, it becomes flooding issues. That brings me to two changes that I think need to happen in the engineering industry. Anything with filtration on it has to have maintenance built in the spec, and when to do maintenance, not performance level to meet. Okay, if you have maintenance and you have to do it when it's 30% full, that cheap stuff that's a Band-Aid is going to have to be replaced every rain event. It's not going to work. That stuff that's meant to be there long-term will sustain. And that's a non-proprietary way of solving all those issues. Maintenance, maintenance, maintenance. If you don't do maintenance, you're going to have issues. Our open throat curb where there's no metal, just a space, we have metal S-clips on the sides and in the middle if they're longer. And they have negative friction in, and the fabric replaces after 18, 20 cleanouts. You can backwash it for more, you know. That's cool. And they can butt up end to end to handle larger openings, so you do have easier maintenance on it. Muddy Water Blues, D.R. Horton site in Alabama. What they had there had its issues, and it's pretty visual as to what they were. And then they had ours on the side, on the bottom right, which was recessed in, not taking up footprint. Pretty neat. Then we have our undergrade easy catch that adjust both ways. So in most areas, two sizes will handle 90% of your storm grates that are square or rectangle. The bags Velcro off, so after 10 to 12 cleanouts, if you're kicking it free, 18 if you're backwashing it, or so. Completely recessed under the grate. That curb is a magnet on top and tucks in. To me, that's the greatest thing. But when you have people going out there and shoving shovels down and everything else, and the frame's not meant to rebuild it, it's meant to be stabilized by the grate. So we came out with something more durable I'm going to show you. Our easy catch man's perfect for round and manholes, beehive, etc. They adjust. The two sizes handle from 15-inch to 37-inch in diameter. Overflows in the corners on the other one and between the tines here. So you get that faster flow rate, higher sediment capture, ease of maintenance, reinforced seatbelt straps in all of them to pull up with J-hooks so you lessen the strength. They're patented. We have specs on it. Makes it easy to tell people what you want on your sites. Questions on those two? Well, and now when you look at it, and we have him coming up in two speakers, but like Aquaflex's carbon capture technology, you drop in those bags and you just made them carbon capture with repeatable, replaceable units in that. Our magnet on top, which I'm getting to, we have that now, a version built in where it's grabbing the nutrients when it comes through as well. So some cool advancements on that. Speaking of that, our Easy Flow is our magnet on top. You don't have to tie it down. You don't have to move the grate. It hits a lot of safety concerns. Rated #1 by Con Ed in New York at keeping the silica out when they're cutting concrete, which is a federal requirement. So put it down, clean up, clean it out, next side down, boom. Cities will use it for 9 months a year before they have to replace it as they're cutting concrete. This facility here had 35 of these inlets. Took us an hour to do them, less than an hour. All the other solutions, you'd be talking a day and a half or so. The labor savings is insane. Not to mention how much room in the warehouse you're creating by taking up less room in that spot. Flat, curb, overflow, curb with overflow. Urbandale, Iowa. 3 big rain events, 11 days. That's what we kept from going down and in. Better curb appeal, patented. I've spoken at conferences across the country. I have videos from Auburn on our magnet on top and below. Please go to that website. The Easy Catch Pro is the upgrade we have. These frames are awesome. They're 4 corners and 4 connecting pieces. The fasteners are soldered underneath on the connecting pieces. They can adjust 4.5 to 5 inches. So if your casting's off, you're not replacing. You can see the inverted corners, which enable it to get back on those 30-67 or 70-30 grates, depending on the manufacturer. But now we have corners that go 4 inches down and in. Same bag goes bag and Velcro's on. And you have curb protection that's completely under the street too. This is West Des Moines, Iowa, on one of their busier street corners. Day after they took the concrete washout unit out and we're washing them all off, that's the silica we captured, putting it in, and then they did that in the upper pictures. Pretty neat. I got install videos. I have 6-month maintenance, year maintenance, year and a half maintenance. I've got Eagan, Minnesota, 4 months up there in post-construction videos. I've got all of this online, so please go there. Easy to install. I'm 51. I can do it. High flow silt fence. We are at 48-inch wood stakes. You're talking 40-inch material. You're talking 24-inch wood lath on the outside, so the fabric goes between both. 6-foot spacing on those. 60-foot rolls. Really incredible the progress we're making from California to North Carolina on the jobs we're getting in. Whether it's a reinforced silt fence, wireback silt fence, etc., the structural reinforcement these give are letting the water through while you're capturing the sediment instead of just holding the water while it seeps through till it topples over. That bottom picture shows you the sediment and how high it got as it's still filtered in an unprotected slope, which is where the problem starts. Combining materials here, and you've seen us do that in a few spots, and we're going to get real creative in the next presentations, but our concrete washout system where you're having a pH stabilizer or pumping in CO2 if you get large enough. You have a flocculant, chitosan, along with a bridger flocculant, which is a chitosan poly mix. And you're able to filter that concrete slurry on site instantly, water treated, and just be left with the hard residue instead of letting it sit there and do what it does. And we've seen it. Large project up north, Big Lakes, Island project, 30-yard dumpster, double wrapped with our fabric, pumping in CO2 to deal with the pH level, pumping in the flocculants as it's going, and they could dump it all in, filter it on site in the false bottom dumpster, or you get what I mean? And then that hard residue they have left over, they're able to put in for helping to rebuild the coral reef underneath. So there's some cool applications being had, and that's where this starts. Other really incredible technologies we have started promoting just because they make sense is like spiral flow. Whether it's grain running or whether it's water in municipal facilities, waterworks, any pipe this is put into, it creates a tornado effect, as you see in the drawing below, where it eliminates that sublime layer on the piping, tubing, etc., so you don't have the repair and maintenance as much. The water consumption is reduced drastically. Just a lot of really cool positives that we're getting into more and more with that. Again, go to our website on this. Before I hand it off next to Jamie on the Reimar stuff, I'm just going to touch base on BioStar, because George is on the other side of the country now doing some work, which is great. But this is a flocculant made out of crab shells, shrimp shells, exoskeletons of sea life. It's put through an acetylation, deacetylation process. So it becomes water soluble, or they can make flake formula that you can meter release. But it turns back to water and CO2 when it's done. So quickly it takes those dirts and flocks them together so they can be filtered. And then there's no residue left over like some of the other flocculants can leave. And again, everything has their place and we represent them both. But that's where this got started in the mining industries and other things, lake projects, stormwater applications. I've been working with them for 20 years. But their next evolution, which to me is really cool, is their dust control. They've developed a 3-level system on dust control, which has no chlorides in it. You've just eliminated one of the biggest contributors to an environmental issue when you're talking water and even soil when you're saying chloride. So that's pretty huge. And again, we have a tote available, dry formula, meter inject, and on the dust control, it comes in liquid totes if you want it pre-mixed, or you can get it in the dry bags and mix it, which is a lot more friendly freight-wise. Other things we're using in conjunction with Naturasolve, with BioStar, with the Marley float skimmers, with Flo-Water are like biochar, which is a public offering, but the advantages that brings in attracting the nutrients as well as the media that deal with the nutrients and becoming little operating hubs within a system to deal with those applications is really neat. Aquaflex, which is my speaker after Jamie, it's a similar concept, but it's open cell technology that is just revolutionizing nutrient management, nutrient testing, nutrient monitoring, spill response, and more. But I'm teasing you. My 30 minutes is up, so I am going to take questions. Does anybody have any questions for me now? Scott, Steve, Jamie, Jeff, Rome, Abigail, Itunoa. Questions?
I don't have a specific question, just a comment that this is the kind of collaboration
Yeah.
that's necessary with all of the problems going on with water. And it's great to see a whole suite of technologies joining forces, which is few and far between until what you've put together, Corey. So thank you.
Well, I appreciate that. And I was having a really cool discussion yesterday with someone that I respect and everyone would respect if I had the freedom to tell you who it was. But the eye-opening they had when it was, well, not only are you having a suite of solutions where you can solve the problems, but when a city, a contractor, an engineer, a municipality, a governing authority comes in, they're not just seeing one solution tied to one manufacturing facility. They're seeing a suite of options themselves so they can make the right choice. And so if we have someone bring us a soil contamination, like downtown Des Moines, they have a 4-acre property that's 8 foot deep, contaminated soils, 3.7 million plus to take it to the landfill, hazmat fees, remove 8 feet of dirt, bring 8 feet of good dirt in, boom. Carbon footprint, insane. We get it. Landfill's already full. Where are they going to put it? Well, we're able to go in with Jennifer's NatureSolve, with biochar, with our bags coming out of the hydrants on site, flip the soil 6 foot deep, one application, 60 days, treat that soil in place. So A, carbon footprint's minimized. B, that soil never gets labeled contaminated because it doesn't get labeled contaminated until it gets moved off site. So you avoid hazmat fees and everything else. And it was under $1 million we were able to get that done for them with. That's incredible. Speak larger focus. If they don't want to do it, go to the landfills and show them how they can treat that soil, fix it, and sell it. So that we just got to find the right avenue. And that's what's cool about this collaboration is we're bringing all that along with the access to market system that's just incredible. And the CEO of our waters is really doing incredible things for that. And we're really excited about that announcement coming at Reno at StormCon. So that's my spiel. Thanks for that, Scott. And Jamie, are you ready to share your screen?
Yep, I'm ready. Let me get it going here.
So Jamie, to me, has revolutionary products when you look at their floating skimmers. And as he gets more in collaboration mode with us and everything else, and you start seeing Aquaflex and our filtering technologies and other things, we're starting to visualize these floating skimmers as possibly growing in their own right and becoming islands and everything else to treat bodies of water post-construction, during construction. And our mind keeps going from there, and I don't want to give away too much. But Jamie, thank you.
Yeah, Corey, appreciate it. Thanks for everybody that's joined. My name's Jamie McCutcheon. I am with Rymar Waterworks Innovations. Our primary product is the Marley Float Skimmer. And just in the last, I guess, year and a half, we've released a new product, which is our water quality filter that goes with the skimmer. We can kind of focus on that here this morning. So if anyone's not familiar, skimmers are typically used in sediment basins. They meet a surface withdrawal requirement. So they drain the basin from the top down, allow more time for mud to settle and release the cleaner water from the surface. This is a little quick video of one of our skimmers on a project that's directly adjoining the lake and pretty nasty sediment basin. They actually had a big blowout on the side, but that's the actual outlet. And, compared to the water that's in the basin to what's being released, and this is going draining directly to Lake Hartwell, it's probably less than 100 yards away. This shows how effective they can be to, simple product, but very effective in releasing the cleaner water. People generally think of skimmers as during construction products, and they remove them post-construction. And so, typically used in basins. So a typical dry detention basin, once construction is completed, they remove the skimmer. They put some sort of a low flow outlet here near the bottom of the pond and size it to release a first flush. First flush methodology is generally intended to allow for pollutants to settle, but we're settling everything to the bottom of the pond, and then we're pulling the discharge from the bottom of the pond. And they typically are going to have some sort of, outlet structure, filter or guard of some sort to try to minimize clogging. But these need a lot of maintenance, and, there are some fallacies in this design. So we've been pushing to use skimmers in the basins. So again, basins rely upon the natural settling of sediment particles. They travel from the inlet to the outlet. So over that flow path, you're going to see the sediment particles generally make their way to the bottom. And so skimmers release that cleaner water from the surface as shown, and they've been widely accepted for construction, proven to be a very cost-effective item to do that. So to me, it just makes sense to consider using them post-construction to enhance water quality as well. Little quick example, this was a detention pond in South Carolina. All that vegetation, trees, is actually the pond. So not surprisingly, they got a notice of violation back in 2013 to clean it up. We went in and helped them with that. Once the vegetation was removed and kind of timber harvested out of it, we realized there were 6 feet of mud built up because there was a 2-inch outlet at the bottom of this basin that had clogged many, many years ago. And it just continually built up debris and muck over probably 15 or 20 years. The estimate to clean out this pond was probably $50,000 to $75,000. Be a lot more than that today. So we ended up redesigning the pond. We put in a skimmer as the primary low flow orifice, and then changed the orifice configuration in the pond. The advantage here is we had a 5-inch skimmer, so it was much less prone to clog than a 2-inch low flow orifice, but it had a similar flow control. And we monitored that pond because this was a pilot project in this county. They required us to do monthly testing or monthly monitoring reports to make sure it was working correctly, which it did. It worked very well. And probably the best example from a maintenance standpoint is after about a year later, they were maintaining the pond. Landscapers had gone out. They had cut the vegetation and just let it fall to the bottom. And they had about a 5-inch rain in just a few hours. So all the vegetation was pushed down to the outlet. But you can see the skimmer there still, even with all that muck and debris in the basin, drained it. It's kind of hard to tell from this picture, but that riser structure is about 12 feet tall. And so if you had a 2-inch outlet down here at the bottom and that had clogged, it would have been an extremely difficult, probably dangerous situation to try to unclog it. So we've been pushing skimmers. Really, we came out with this one in 2013. We've been recommending them for permanent use, mainly for maintenance. Just these detention ponds often aren't maintained well, and those low flow outlets get clogged. And so if you can do anything to help, minimize the maintenance, that's definitely a good thing. But just now we have developed our water quality filter. And so this is that same pond. We've kind of used it as our sandbox or playground for the last 10 years. And we came up with an idea to say, hey, what if we use the skimmer to pull water through some sort of a filter and provide even more treatment before that water gets discharged? What we came up with was a 2-stage system. So the outer stage, and this was our prototype, but it was essentially a turbidity curtain, but it had a filter material built into it so flow could go through it. And then the inner was a non-woven material that's designed to absorb hydrocarbons, definitely helps with TSS, and can also potentially help with metals. We monitored this thing for about 2 years. And you can kind of see just the turbidity here in this left picture. The water in the main basin is darker, more turbid than the water as it gets to the skimmer. If you look at the outlet structure, I wouldn't drink it, but it's fairly clean water for coming out of a detention pond. So we felt like it was doing a pretty good job and meeting what we were trying to accomplish. So we had TRI Environmental do testing on it. It was done to an ASTM standard and determined that we met over 90% TSS removal. So in most places, water quality standards are either 80% or 85% TSS. Is a pretty typical standard. So we have confirmed our skimmer filter combination meets that, actually exceeds it over 90%. One thing to point out about our testing we did was we set the test tank up so that it did not have a forebay, had very little travel distance. We're actually putting the sediment laden soil into the tank within about 1.5 feet of the filter. So we took out travel distance, took out forebay, and just said, hey, we want to see kind of a worst case condition for just the filter itself. Still got over 90%.
Jamie, quick question for you, and I may be getting ahead of myself, but when I look at that, and I've always seen post-construction, whether it be go large scale at the casinos with their big ponds and fountains and everything else, or in developments that have lakes and stuff. Do you see this at the forefront, having a rising filter and those controlled things where the water can be released and used for irrigation and other purposes from that point?
Yeah, I think we've got a ton of potential. Obviously from the stormwater standpoint, what's regulated, what's required, it's kind of, where the market starts to meet. And so, we feel like the cleaner water you can get, the more you can trap in the basin, which is kind of the main purpose of the basin is to trap those pollutants there so you can be managed and handled. But yeah, you're releasing that water. It can be used for irrigation. We had some discussions with Clemson University. They've got a program for developing countries. Like, hey, if you're pulling water out of a river, could you use some sort of filtration material like this to get cleaner water? It's definitely got to meet U.S. drinking standards, but it can be a lot cleaner than what they have now.
Well, that's what's on our minds and at least my mind, and I think in our discussions, I don't want to let too much out of the bag, but the media we have, Scott's materials, my materials, combining these, I think these units will be able to be tailored to taking out what's needed so that water is the most usable again. And that's one of the huge points of what our waters and our soils is.
Yeah, when we came up with this two-stage system, the idea was that we would be able to incorporate specialty media into the system very easily. Now, some of that media requires contact time, to have more efficiency. The non-woven material we use is actually treated with an antimicrobial. So areas that are having bacteria issues or fecal issues, it will help some. Full disclosure, we have not done testing on that yet to see how much it helps because it does require contact time. But that interior filter is actually 2 layers and it's slitted and the panels are offset. So basically it creates a weaving motion through the filter to create that contact time. It's still fairly quick. I don't know if it's going to be super effective, but any little thing we can do that can incorporate media that will tackle more than just sediment, we feel like that's going to be a benefit. We're not saying it's a one size fits all. There's certainly, partnering with other our waters groups and materials to go in there. That'll be kind of where hopefully this, organization goes, is to see how we put different products together. One interesting thing when it comes to nutrients, we had a time-lapse camera set up on this pond, and in the summer we actually started growing vegetation. So the non-woven material, over the summer started sprouting. First concern I had was this is a dry pond. I was worried that the roots might get in and kind of root it down to the bottom. That didn't happen. It always floated up. But one thing we're going to be looking at in the future is, can we put in specific vegetation that might help with nitrogen and phosphorus or other dissolved pollutants to help take those out? Again, some of those take contact time, may have to expand the filter material to make it larger to have more effectiveness with that. But it's the trajectory of where we're headed with that. We now have, kind of finished our initial prototyping, finished our testing, come up with a commercial version that's just now becoming available. We continue to monitor it. This is kind of a little bit better picture of this pond. One thing to point out is this pond is in a heavily commercial developed area, but most of the development does not have any other stormwater management. So it's maybe a 40-acre watershed or so that comes to this pond. It's located on a former car dealership, so it's basically got asphalt all the way around it. And upstream is a grocery store, shopping center. There's electrical substation there. There's several other retail developments. But you can see, and this is fall, so you got a lot of leaf litter and other debris in there. But this pond gets a lot of muck, just a lot of stuff in it. And so as we continue to monitor this and show that, it works, it is a dry pond, so it'll drain down pretty much entirely. And then next rainfall fills back up. And so one of the benefits on our filter compared to traditional methods of water quality, when you get a small rain event or a slow rain event, and basically water's coming in and going out just about as fast, that water's still having to go through the filter to get to the skimmer to get discharged. So you're treating those really small rain events. And then what we recommend, depending on the size of the site and size of the area, if you can size the skimmer to control that low storm event, in most cases that's like a 2-year storm, then you're now treating up to whatever event you can control with the skimmer. So if you can size the skimmer to be your 2-year outlet control, you're now treating everything from the trickle all the way up to that 2-year storm, which is you're getting much more of that annual rainfall, and you're treating it to something that's been tested to show at least 90% TSS. And again, that was not counting a forebay, not counting travel distance, not counting any vegetation in the pond. That's also going to help. So we feel like you're going to get, easily achieve that 90% level in most cases. Again, this is a little better picture of the pond. It's kind of a top-down view. You can see, the skimmer in there with the filter, draining into there. And then this is just a bigger view of the pond. Again, asphalt's all the way around it. So, and the idea here is that, the skimmer floats, you get a high filtration rate, coming through the 2-stage system. The filter is about 3 feet deep in the pond. So if the skimmer rises up more than 3 feet, it's open on the bottom. And so water can come underneath. At that point, we're allowing gravity to basically do the polluted control because it's a very low flow rate coming below the skimmer up to it. And so it's not enough force there to pull those sediment particles or polluted particles up to the skimmer to get discharged. So it's kind of a hybrid of filtration and gravity system that allows it to have a very long life, very good flow rates. And again, you kind of see the 2-stage system here. We've got that outer, just a polyethylene, typical woven geotextile fabric. Corey, we're definitely going to look into using your fabric in there, because I think it would be an even better application for it. And then this interior is that non-woven material. So just kind of quick, some of the benefits that we talked about is your peak rate of discharge for your pond can be based on your filter treatment flow rate up to that first quantity storm event. In most cases, you're basing that on that first flush release. So you actually release that first flush faster, which actually makes your pond smaller. So from a developer standpoint, community, most developers, if we can make that pond smaller, it's going to give them more square footage to develop, kind of better yield from the property. So it makes them more willing to add this type of material. Again, the filter is going to treat 100% of the runoff from storms up to the peak rate. And like we talked about, we can customize that filtration media. I think this is really where the Our Waters organization comes in and starts partnering and say, hey, we've got a material that can meet whatever pollutant of concern. We can incorporate that into our system and then come up with a system that attacks the specific concerns for sites and general areas that have different concerns. There's obviously some benefits to using the filter with a skimmer. Again, the skimmer can control that peak flow rate. The skimmer is going to increase that filter efficiency because you're withdrawing from the surface where your water is cleaner, so you're not having to treat as dirty a water as it is on the bottom. And then the skimmer makes it easier to access. We're putting these filters in the pond, so there's a huge volume that it can retain of pollutants, and you can get to it pretty easy to be able to clean it and change it. And currently we're recommending every 2 years to change our filter. It's not a perfect solution. It's not one size fits all for everything. Filters are prone to clog over time. And so you're going to have to do maintenance. Corey, you talked about it earlier, maintenance requirements are, different areas enforce them differently, obviously, right? Some areas are really proactive and do a great job, and annual inspections require an annual reporting and make sure they're done. Others, ponds may not be seen for 5 or 10 years, and that's just the reality of where this industry is right now, depending on the MS4 you're in. But if you're going to consider this, it's going to have to be maintained. The other thing is skimmer has to be durable. A lot of the skimmers out there are made of PVC. We wouldn't recommend a PVC product. Ours is an HDPE product. It's a 20-year plus lifespan. And the biggest challenge for us, and this is where organizations like Our Waters and others can kind of help, lead the charge. There are no established standards for basis of design. So one of our biggest hurdles right now is engineer wants to use this. The local MS4 is like, well, I've never heard of that. Nobody's ever done that before. And so they don't have a method in their design manual that says, okay, here's what you have to do to get approved. A lot of times you can overcome that with a variety of ways, and just a engineer explaining what they're doing, or we're trying to get the word out to MS4s to do it. But it's definitely one of our challenges right now is people that want to use it, having to make sure that the local authority will approve it. So, real quickly, won't do a lot of marketing in this, but this is our website. We're pretty proud of it. I think we've got one of our better ones in the industry. Gives a lot of easy information to do. One of the things we just recently accomplished is develop a training series. So we have a 10 to 15 minute videos that break down how to do different things with our products. So anything from basic skimmer sediment basin design to more complicated design using SEDCAD to modeling the skimmer and hydroflow to the water quality stuff. So those are available and kind of easy to digest and refer to pieces. And then we have all of our information is one easy download. So we call it our engineer spec pack. And it's a zip file that you download and extract to your computer, and has everything very well organized for you, from our skimmer, the sediment basin details, and water quality stuff. So that was a pretty quick highlight overview of RIMAR and the Marley float and the water quality filter. We've got a lot of people speaking today, and be glad to answer any questions, but didn't want to take too much time to go through this, but kind of give a quick introduction.
Does anyone have questions for Jamie?
Thank you for that.
Well, and what I like about it is when you start seeing some of the cool things out there, when they start talking green roofs and taking the water out of gutters and storing it in reusable containers for applications, and basin work and lagoons and floating islands and combining things. And he mentioned islands with vegetation. There's a lady that's invented a plant that sucks up the phosphorus out of the ground and waters and stuff during cover crops. So beautiful, beautiful presentation, and thank you. But that right there, you're seeing Flo-Water and RIMAR as delivery systems. The next presenter, Scott Smith, is sort of in a unique category because he's a delivery system, but he's also a media. And I'm going to let him share and present. Scott.
Okay.
He's an inventor. He has patents. He's Harvard graduate, down to earth dude. Here you go.
I'm trying to figure out how to share this screen here. Can everybody see this presentation?
Yes.
Okay. Everyone can see. I'm just confirming it. So, thanks to Corey and for reaching out and introducing himself to me. And, I'm excited about combining with all these other technologies. So this is about, what I call sustainable excess nutrient and chemical contamination solutions. And what this material is an open cell polyolefin elastomer material. And it's free of plasticizers and chemicals, and it's no vinyl chloride. What you see with these toxic chemicals with others. In fact, when I invented this, I've got patents on it. I've used a medical grade elastomer that is used to save lives every day, and it's free of chemicals. And what you're looking at on the screen is at UC Berkeley a few years ago, and under a microscope is how the open cells, if you want to get oil contaminants, phosphorus, and a whole host of other volatile and semi-volatile organic compounds, number one, you have to have something that attracts at the molecular level. Number two, you have to have the ability to retain it. And number three, you want to repel clear water. And this is, substantially non-polar. And what I say is that this kind of is like mimics the human lungs. The surface area with the alveoli of the human lungs is a half a tennis court, and except in this particular case, the Aquaflex open cell foam breathes contamination and exhales clear water. So it's all about surface area and attracting things at the molecular level. And we've been successfully, especially over the last year and a half here, deploying filter bags and what we call eelgrass. And you'll see these designs, obviously, we maximize surface area and contact with the water. And the fact that it's 1.7 pounds per cubic foot. And I've actually trademarked sustainability without compromise. What that means is low carbon footprint, minimal impact on the environment, and maximizing protection of health and clean water. So the point is, this is a low foam density. You're not using much carbon, and it's reusable. You can wring it out, and you can clip. And we'll get to more in a bit about how it's not just for remediation. You can actually clip things off. It's part of my patent, and you can tell what you're absorbing over time. And you can see this installation here from last September. You can clip little segments off of the blades of the open cell foam eelgrass, and you can track what it's absorbing and pulling out of the water over time. Clip one blade off 1 week, 1 day, every day for 7 days, if you understand what I mean. And you can see here it absorbing a variety of contaminants out of the water, and we have been able to pull the excess nutrients, especially particulate phosphorus, out. And I've got some short embedded videos. Here's a video of this install.
One question I have, Scott, is that's instant. The moment that hits it, it's captured. It doesn't have to sit there and cool, correct?
Yeah, I mean, and it's over time too, because it's never. Can you hear this video too? Can everyone see the video?
Yeah, but
Yes, I can. But it's the background. I'm not hearing properly.
For the water of the second. And the strategy is pick up the phosphorus.
And the point of all this is, although this technology I developed can be used for harmful algal blooms, the point is the ultimate way is to prevent them, and if you can get the excess nutrients out. So this eelgrass, this filter base can be combined with Flo-Water, and every technology you see here, this can all be combined together, because no one technology is going to solve everything. I mean, this technology does very well with particulate phosphorus, and we can combine with biochar and other technologies to get the excess nutrients. And we've now expanded the installations throughout Massachusetts and Michigan. And here you can see on that lower left, that's every discharge area, every rainstorm is a potential oil spill, excess nutrient. And And the good news about this Aquaflex technology, it's, it's never one singular contaminant. Most likely after a rainstorm, it's going to be oils, spilling from cars along with excess nutrients, excess fertilizers. And you can see, how the material absorbs, and it absorbs 32 times its weight in oil and contaminants. And I was wiped out in oil contaminated floodwaters in 2006, about 18 years ago myself. And I've developed, I have an expression that the real world is my laboratory. I've been all over a variety of spills and events and kind of developed the technology. And this, I have 25 different patents to my name, but this is one of my main base patents. And we call it an open cell foam environmental indicator and methods of use. And it's all based on third-party anybody that wants any follow-up information and data, happy to provide it. Feel free to reach out to Corey and we can take it from there. And it's about the water column. If you see on the right here, I say life exists in the water column above the bottom, beneath the surface. And we addressed the water column too. And back in 2010, I went in with this material into the Gulf of Mexico. British Petroleum, BP America ended up, endorsing it, recommending it, as did the American Petroleum Institute. And they, did a cover story in 2010. And you can see here the open cell foam on the left and then the single white pad. And I have a saying that, when your technology works really well and better than everything else out there, it's disruptive. And as entrepreneurs, you learn, you think everybody wants to buy it. And then you get threats and you get the big companies saying, well, we don't want to use your technology, Scott. We don't want to get the oil out of the water. We'll lose 80% of our revenue. We're associated with the landfills, the more trips we make to the landfills. But I think we now live in a world 10 years later where the old legacy technologies and the business models of the clubs preventing technologies like those within our waters from gaining traction. I think those days are over. And then I kind of validated in a real world oil spill first, and then the United States Bureau of Safety and Environmental Enforcement has an OMSET facility. Some of you may be familiar with it. And here you can see our material with wringing out and recovering it. So in many applications, you want to talk about sustainability without compromise. This is so effective. That's my trademark, sustainability without compromise. The material's proven so effective that some billion-dollar companies spend a lot of lobbying dollars, and they want to keep filling the landfills. But we'll work through that, and that's the benefit of an alliance that with our waters. And it's about the water column too. We've done a lot of testing where we can remove oil, excess nutrients, and all contaminants from the water column. I want to show this short video, and then I'll explain it.
Can't hear a thing, Scott.
He's just watching the video now and he'll explain it after. Sorry.
Okay.
So what that video just showed, before I get to the next one, is you hear in the healthcare industry about prevention being the cure, and what you see is divers in the water column clipping off the eelgrass blades, and we can figure out what is in the water and test for the full spectrum of contaminants. A project that I'll be going out and working with the University of Washington and some subject matter PhD experts is eelgrass is dying and the San Juan Islands in Washington State, and they can't figure out why. So we've been doing some experiments and deploying in the water column to help figure out, is it a specific contaminant? Is it a combination of petroleum hydrocarbons from increased population? Is it excess nutrients? And you can get the drift there because they can't. So the key of this is you can put this material and combine it in filter bags with any of the technologies under the Our Waters umbrella, and you can actually figure out if you have a problem before it reaches critical mass, whether it's an algal bloom or an escalating oil spill that's going to impact wildlife and human health. And here everyone's probably familiar with the single use plastic white booms, and by the way, they have plasticizers in them, vinyl chloride and other things. And, this is so simple. It's hard. I mean, it's just obvious why it doesn't work. This is the Huntington Beach oil spill in October 2021. I mean, it's almost to the point of ridiculous about why you put these booms out.
We have a hard time hearing you with the video running.
Okay.
That's incredible. And if you can hear me now, in conjunction with our Easy Catch Pros, those eel mop heads get dropped in the eelgrass, and you have removable units that are grabbing the nutrients in those facilities. Our magnet on top, we have developed with a ring of that around it where it detects when contaminants are starting to go in the inlets, and we're developing it to where it actually contains them as well. So a lot of cool collaboration stuff just started happening.
So, the point is what you see there. It's almost absurd that those single white plastic booms are still being used and needlessly filling landfills in a day and age where some states in the country wants to ban single-use plastic straws. When you look at the amount of these white booms and pads that are not effective and that get thrown out every day. And again, Corey, this goes why we need to come together and the power of the lobbying from the legacy companies. So I want to get into, I wanted to make this brief, take some time for questions, and everything we do is we validate with the technology. That's the beauty of the patent. So you can see these filter bags for, wastewater, stormwater, 96% reduction in oil and grease, suspended solids, biological oxygen demanders, all significant reductions. And this is with Aquaflex. Without Aquaflex, TPH reduction of 90%, greater than 90%, and suspended solids greater than 50%. And Corey, this is again what I'm excited about working with your technologies is these filter bags, Aquaflex alone, already proven effective, but they're going to be that much more durable and that much more effective for a broader array of contaminants utilizing your technology and others.
Well, again, it's about incredible media and the delivery systems.
Yeah,
you take your Aquaflex and soak it in Naturasolve or soak it in Chitosan and then deploy it out there. And now you're releasing media while you're capturing nutrients and treating it in those aqua hubs. I mean,
that's exactly where we're headed, and we've had success in some research and development. And this is basically an appendix of some of the work. Believe it or not, I never knew that it's considered that we'd work so effectively with particulates like phosphorus and certain metals, and this is more of an appendix. I'm not going to get into this, but those Corey, you can distribute this or post on LinkedIn. This is for anybody. Consider all these slides like an appendix that kind of shows prior work. Here is on Nantucket where we proved out the phosphorus removal going back to 2014. And this again shows taking those eelgrass blades over time. And this is the uptake within the foam over a period. So you got all the tourists arriving, all the human activity, and it shows how it's concentrating more and more of the particulate phosphorus over time. And, these are some of the other chemicals we can absorb. Again, consider this an appendix for those that are interested that want to go deeper down and see more of the data.
Well, and you'd like mix that with biochar and you've grabbed phosphorus and nitrates.
Yeah.
You just eliminated what's making the algae, and I'll touch on that at the end about how right now with our collaboration, we have 3 ways of dealing with lake algae. And I'll touch on that later. Sorry.
Correct, Corey. And part of these solutions is understand what each technology does really well. Because if anybody tells you one technology does everything, they're simply full of some BS. Because when it comes to dissolved contaminants or nitrogen, we're going to have to add something to the foam. We'll do and dissolved phosphorus. I mean, that's why the combining of the biochar and other things are really good. And then here's some Florida harmful algal blooms. And again, hopefully we get to the point where we can minimize these harmful algal blooms, and we're not using any of these products. And we want to solve the problem if we get the excess nutrients out of the water. So that is basically the end of that. So any questions?
Yes.
Yeah. Somebody raised a hand.
I too noodle.
Good. It's Nolua.
Okay.
Hi.
Okay. Just a quick question. Hi. Does this Aquaflex work for large ethane fish ponds? Also,
And
when
fish.
you want to clear out the algae. Yes.
Yeah, it's worked well in fish ponds, and believe it or not, we did have a project where it worked very well in actually delivering nutrients for fish too. So it's delivering food that was kind of infused in it. And, this was a few years ago, and then it was, the ultimate end user didn't want to pay fair value for the product, but that's a great question. So it can be used to remove contaminants in fish ponds, and actually also be used to deliver nutrients.
All right. Thank you.
Well, and again, I think you see the value of his working as a media alone, working as a delivery system. Start mentioning biochar and some of the public offerings out there that aren't as protected as what our collaboration is. And when you combine his 1 and my 2 and Naturasolve's 4 and then biochar and nano bubbles that we haven't even touched on, where it's an incredible thing that we're doing a lot of cool work with the Kitazan and the Naturasolve now. And that's my lead into Jennifer. Jennifer, are you here? Oh, she will be here in like 4 minutes. So what we've recapped here is the ability for anyone to get us a soil report, a water report, plans on a project. And what Scott just mentioned there is, and Jamie mentioned, and others have mentioned, is dealing with it right where it is and not taking into play the stuff upstream, which would increase the results of what they do if you have more things in place. And that ties us back to what our waters and our soil here does. So from an our soil standpoint, you can treat the soils in place. You can create space in the soil. You can increase yield on ag 30 to 70%, reduce water needed by 50%, eliminate the needs and rounds for those herbicides and pesticides. That's huge. But now we have those turf reinforcement mats and anchoring systems where you can do shoreline reinforcement. And we've got thousands of feet and miles of levees done in Louisiana with these systems on the backside where you're using soft armor to reinforce. I'm getting them. Hold on. Admit. Here's nature. So to reinforce while you're treating the soils in place to create and better the soils and improve absorption, regenerative farming, that whole thing. And what's cool about the ties of upstream protection, floating skimmers, Aquaflex, biochar, nanobubbles, Flo-Water. The collaboration just makes exponential growth on solutions and just wowness when you're dealing with the situation, which is what is needed. Jennifer Mitchell of Naturasolve is here. And just a prelude, incredible woman, wonderful foresight. The work she's doing locally as well as internationally is incredible. And we're talking water and soil mixes with the biologics or the bacteria and fungi and other bugs in the jug, if you want to call it generically, at treating these. And the knowledge you're going to gain here and the foresight into what our future is going to start right now. Jennifer, can you share your screen?
I can. And thank you for being patient with me this morning. This has been a fun day with computers in my world.
I get it.
Let's see.
But
All right, let's see. Maybe. Is it sharing that tab? Because it's not clicking all the way through.
no. But I mean, even combining hers, which they're looking at doing dry formulas of with that dust control that's environmentally friendly. Now you can look at stabilizing soil piles while they germinate much faster. You can look at replanting trees and using this to eliminate the tree shock from when you transfer trees. The faster vegetation germinates, the faster you get paid on jobs. And all this ties into what she's going to talk to now. I bridged it, Jennifer. You're up.
I really appreciate you, Corden. So this morning I was going to talk about something a little bit different. I'm going to go quickly through what we do at Naturasolve, but I really want to reinforce what Corden was just saying about the collaboration is really what's key here. And the more I go and meet the brilliant minds that are bringing about nature-based solutions, the more I realize that when we lock arms, there's really nothing that can stop the revitalization of our lands. And so what I do, my name's Jennifer, I'm CEO of Naturasolve. I started the company after taking some other stints in marketing, business development, and technology. I realized food and water was, when it came right down to it, the bare essentials. And so regardless of what we do out there in the world to entertain ourselves or build beautiful infrastructure, if we're not taking care of those basics, the rest tends to crumble, which is exactly what I see, happening kind of all around us. The product is something that is developed around modalities that, quite frankly, have been around for a really long time. When I go to Navajo Nation, they talk about bacteria gods. When I go to different places overseas, they use biology in various ways. Farmers use it, wastewater managers use it. But what we've done is take an array of bacteria, beneficial bacteria, which is a very loose term that scientists don't really love, but it basically means that they're either doing work or they die off and become benign. And so we use an array of bacteria, and we have added fungi to that mix. And normally the things that we have put together don't get along, but we have figured out how to breed them in a way that puts them in a string where they either become a food source for one another or they have a beneficial use. Our product is all natural, it's biological. We have the ability to clean water, which tends to make things like algae and mosquito not love to be in that water. We help to provide nutrient oxidation in a very rapid manner. Usually we see about 21 days until we have a clean waterway. We, through our bacteria, help to break down any organics, including the chain of hydrocarbons, and they also help to eliminate or break apart complex chemical bonds, rendering the different components inert. The fungi in our mix do the heavy metal sequestration. It's an organic sequestration where the heavy metals are pulled into the cellular wall of the fungi, and it drops them out of the water column or pushes them deep into the soil and makes them bio-unavailable. to plants. We also help to eliminate and reduce pathogens and odors or something. We do almost on contact. We've timed it. Our longest time we've ever had for eliminating odors in a very large sludge truck was just over 12 minutes. But it's pretty interesting, actually, the tests that I've done around odors. Anyway, I won't go into that. We are a liquid product. Yes, we can put it into a granular, but we tend to see that dispersion and some other things are slower. So we've kept our prices low enough that we can ship around the globe. Like Corden mentioned, we are working in a lot of different countries. That's new. 2021, we were in the United States and one small area of the Masai Mara in Kenya. And then as of yesterday, I think we're to almost 30 countries, 28, 29, something like that, that we're either being tested in or used in. And that's, I think, literally just because everybody has hit the point where there's not a whole lot of options, and nature-based solutions are really the answer. Our product is shelf stable. A lot of biologicals, they are not shelf stable with outside of a realm of a very specific set of degrees, 70, 72. Sometimes they don't last past a few months, but we're shelf stable for at least 5 years. And we have mobile units that we can deploy so that we can manufacture on site to get rid of some of those shipping costs and also help support local economies by buying things locally and using local labor for distribution. We're super easy to implement. That's one of the hardest things about it, actually. Headed all the way to the Philippines so that I can mix some product in some water and spray because it's really difficult to understand how rapid biology works. But if you mix our product in with water and then you can apply it anyway through backpack sprayers, through drip irrigation lines, pivot lines, easy flow systems. Drones are really cool. They have LiDAR and, object avoidance and can get really low to the ground. We've got a lot of different ways to implement the product, and we've been testing since 2014. We commercialized in 2018, right after the EPA flipped the rule on biologicals. And now that number of 24% has grown recently, but a lot of our customers use us as the primary aspect of their business or part of that service process. We've already gone over this. I'm not going to go into that anymore. Here's a few examples of some of the things that we do. Ponds and soil. Pace Ranch is one of my favorites. I really like Walt Plum. He's a land developer in Utah. He's also in the oil and gas industry. And this was a trust land that he was doing as a give back to the community that you see on the left. And he laughed at me at first when I told him what I could do to this land that you see and that algae that you see with a few gallons. I think we used 5 gallons total of product for that first year. And that included the waterways, the ponds, and a few different treatments. But by 2 years later, the entire ecology had rebounded. He barely needs us anymore. He just does spot treatments now. And that Park City has actually given him more water. So he's expanded his waterways and is really utilizing our product in the best modality, which would be in a circular manner. So for example, you can treat a waterway and then you can pump that water. And we're setting up systems like that, utilizing Corden's easy flow system or Flo-Water systems, so that we can utilize the water that's already been treated, pump it back through his system, and let that leach back into the soil and also back into the waterway, and utilize the product in the way that both gives the bacteria and fungi a continual food source, but also makes everything much more efficient for the end user. In no crops that we've ever tried have we not had an increased yield 30 to 50%, but we also, for the purposes of this conversation, drastically reduce or eliminate, and I don't use that word lightly, but drastically reduce or eliminate the need for fertilizers. In Kenya and Uganda, for example, they don't have fertilizers and pesticides available. All of their plants were dying. And as of June of this year, we have provided for almost 40 million meals, 38.08 million meals as of June. That down in the bottom right corner is Brian Paul, the CEO of USANA Kids Eat Foundation. And that's him in some of the garden towers we're growing in Kenya. That's on the Masai Mara. We, let's see, there we go. Hydrocarbons is another area of interest. Carbon credits and VOC credits are an area where you can all learn to make extra money, I believe. And the chain of hydrocarbons and VOCs are something that we can do very, very rapidly. We're working on a hydrocarbon specific product, but right now we're 28 days to, a 90+% reduction. We had a test on some grounds where we were not allowed to even touch the soil. We could only apply our product, and we had a 98% reduction in 3 months. And so what we can do, if you see this little picture in the middle, is rapidly turn hydrocarbons inert. So we're working on some of those products. And a little bit about us. We have a rapidly growing team. We have been able to add a couple of wonderful individuals recently, and so they're not reflected. Does it show my new screen, by the way, or is it still stuck on the old one?
It shows the new
It shows the new one. Okay, great.
opportunity to accelerate nature.
Yeah, and so so that's a little about what we do at NatraSolve and a little bit about the products. But one of the things that I've found interesting about Cordon, about this group, and about what's happening in the marketplace is the more time I spend, the more I see that the whole market is lined up behind us. And so there's two things that I wanted to share with everybody here that I feel can help us all move forward, is that in 2022, and I was given this report by somebody that helped to create it.
We lost the screen.
Okay. Weird. Okay.
We saw it initially, so it's a report from 2022.
Okay, so I got it back. I don't know why it stopped sharing. There we go. Okay, so this is something that it's online, it's available online, but this is something I would encourage everybody to take a look at, because this reads like a playbook for what we're all trying to accomplish with in introducing nature-based solutions. And those are some keywords that we're going to adopt in my group. But this is from November 2022, and the White House has decided that they think we can get at least a 30% increase in output and profitability by using nature-based solutions. And so once this hit, it had a residual effect. And right here, this was very recently. It's being called a seismic shift. I don't know which, in the our waters world, the Army Corps of Engineers plays heavily into a lot of different scenarios for lakes and waterways, as well as some other areas. And so in following with that White House report, the Army Corps of Engineers has been mandated in what they're calling a seismic shift to use nature-based solutions prior to any other gray technology, any infrastructure, any equipment, any of those things. And so I would encourage everybody that is working in this area to look at these two arenas between the Army Corps and the White House. That just is a mandate to use the types of products and the modalities that we're all utilizing, but these can help other people, other decision makers move down the line, because nature-based solutions in the past have really not been what was focused on. We all know that the majority of, well, there's been a lot of chemicals, there's been a lot of equipment, and now those things are being either outmoded or they're unavailable. And so regardless of why they're making these changes, you know, there is huge, wonderful statements in here that can help everybody's business move forward. And I think that I would just encourage absolutely to take a look into those two things.
Will you send that? Will you send me both of those things, Jennifer?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And so, you know, like I said, most of the work that we do is in soil, water, and waste. However, combining our efforts with the other individuals that have different application methods for our technologies, or have projects that we can help to stimulate that initial ecological recovery, and then regenerative can come take over, for example, or we can have other modalities and technologies move in. We just find that we're kind of a catalyst to help rapidly break down biosolids, help with heavy metal sequestration, eliminating those chemicals that are on the land, and giving the soil a good, healthy boost in the organic matter and moisture depth. Those things tend to help rebalance the ecology, help the bees come back. You can lick us off your finger. It's all organic and naturally occurring. We've been, like I said, testing since 2014. So if anybody needs, you know, different data points, we've got that all over the place. And right now we're actually creating a wonderful database that will become like the farmer's almanac of biologicals and biochar. We're dialing in all the different types of uses and climates and application methods, as well as what types of biochar are beneficial for soil recovery, for different types of remediation. And so if anybody's in those arenas, we would love to also communicate, because we would like to collect as much data as we can from the biological and biochar industry to give people a user's guide to what is beneficial and works. Biochar, for example, is kind of all over the map, and biology tends to help it have more dynamic uses and extend the longevity, but not all biochar is created equal. And some of it is crazy. I've put some of it in with our product and it boils like a cauldron. It's the strangest thing I've ever seen. And some of it does almost nothing or goes backwards in pH from where we want to be. So we're putting together some different data points, and we really, my team and I, the goal here is to be solutions providers, and whatever that means. So we are bringing on projects that are very dynamic and are going to need people like Corden, like Michael Corden, like so many of the people that I've actually been meeting recently. But if you have projects you feel we could help on, or if we can be a resource in any way, please let us know, because we're in it for the win. And I'm very excited, after so many years of work, to finally have the federal government and the Army Corps stepping in and looking at nature-based solutions, because we've been hollering about it for years to all of them. So,
well, and I love it. And Lulu, did you have a question? Lulu, you had your hand raised, or was that from before? Okay. Michael Corden joined, and what I love about all of the stuff we're talking about here is there's some really cool-minded people that have the ability to implement those large scale, and Michael Corden and Alarivian is one of those people. He's also one of those that's taking the chitosan and the nanobubbles and Jennifer's mix and testing it in colleges and getting the right experts on it. And
there's nothing like meeting people in person, you guys. Like, Zoom is great, but if you haven't met Michael in person, what a great experience. Thank you for inviting me out to Arizona.
Thank you for coming. That couldn't have been a more productive day. And as Corey Don has been trying to do for quite a while, the complementary nature of our technologies is so spectacular. And I become more convinced of that every day. When we take a look at some of the large programs we're doing, we all think we have a great technology, and we do. But the complementary fit of these makes it a total solution. We are very good at mitigating HABs at scale, but how do we properly contain or sediment those nutrients? Your water mix is spectacular. We're working in Sarasota Bay trying to mitigate the effects of runoff from all of these hurricanes and heavy rains. What Corridon does says we're also going to keep that runoff from flying into those bays. When you took a look at what happened on the Seine, and I told everybody, listen, 2 months ago, those Olympians would be swimming in sewage.
Yep.
Paris spent $1.4 billion on the waste treatment plants, and they did nothing to address the rain runoff, which has created all of the issues for those Olympians. France is so bothered by that, they're sending their very best to work with us now at ASU to get on top of that.
Good.
The perversity of that is that Paris has been using ozone in their drinking water since 1906, yet didn't have the smarts to take that technology and use it to naturally clean up the Seine the way it needed to be done. Anyway, I'm going to be quiet. This isn't my meeting.
No, Michael,
don't
you dare.
I
Well,
appreciate the complementary nature of all of these toys.
Well, and I love what Michael's vision is. I love his passion. I love his 12 steps forward and sometimes 4 back, and then he's going 30 more forward. And his excitement and involvement in everything we're doing is key. And we talk delivery systems, we talk service partners on getting our systems in play. There's larger conversations happening right now with companies, and one of them in particular just bought 17 companies, and they have the service that gets us into a bunch of different industries nationwide, own engineering companies within that, own a bunch of other levels of what we need done in this. And those conversations have started with our waters so that we don't just have solutions for everybody, which is key. Well, we have the ability to guide them to certified installers on this stuff so it's done right. Because you can design upstream and protect the soils with the turf reinforcement mat so you stop it from moving, which is one of the key pieces that has to happen large scale. You can establish the vegetation, you can coordinate and put buffer zones and put the right vegetation here and others here, and berms and levees and level changes, and mix it all together before you get to the water.
Yep.
Which is what has to happen if sustainability is even a word that can be coming into these equations. And then you deal with the problem that's in place while all that's happening. And Michael, deal with that, whether it's the Red Tide, Lake Okeechobee, some of the larger stuff that's like, hello, well, with our waters' help. And then upstream, the second tier of our waters with that soft armor reinforcing. So you're talking fixing soils, rehabbing soils, bio-augment soils, protect soils in place with vegetation that's refurbished, which just gives you all those other positives from being able to deal with nutrients on their own as you do that. You have moves that have been made where the ditches that the farms are running off to are now owned by the counties, and you get a little more reputable counteraction on that and larger scale of containing the stormwater in some of those ditches, so they get credits for flooding and everything else, and you can monitor what's in it, so you can have action plans and people accountable for paying. But this is all just tips of the conversations that have been happening with our waters. And I love the gravitational pull, whether it's companies we want in it, companies we want working with it, engineering firms, cities, municipalities, universities. But thank you to everyone here, because this is how it starts. And this is just a start, but we're 11 months in on this thing. We have a booth 335 at Reno at StormCon, the end of August. A bunch of us are going to be there. Please come. You'll meet the new CEO who brings a lot of substantialness behind him, turning larger companies than we've all thought of around, as well as stimulating that specification, closing rate, access to market we all need as companies. So anyone here that's an end user, facilitator via specification, or enacting laws to dictate we're here to help.
And
Thank
we
you.
we're sending an individual to StormCon that is going to help just figure out how to bring our different groups together. How can we be mutually beneficial in as many scenarios as we can? What is it that each of us needs in order to grow? What is it that we want in terms of ideal projects? What is it going to take to get there? We're really laying in the strategy behind what, and not we, just us, but everybody I think involved is really in support of Corden and what he's doing in bringing together collaborative efforts. And so we're bringing our best of the best to the table. We've got a heck of a team over in my group. I know I met some of Michael Corden's people as well. And it's amazing how much they always say a handful of people can flip the world. And I think that's absolutely true. What I have seen, I've been on the road for 2 days shy of a month as of a couple days ago. And I have just met some of the most brilliant people. And most of the places that they're stuck are very similar. It's that market adoption. It's the education, the re-education. Nature-based solutions are not similar to chemical solutions or mechanical solutions. They are not finite. They are not definite. You don't need to add a gallon exactly. Like there's different things that nature does, and when you plant the right things, you don't have the same, like there's all of these things that we need to re-educate. And so finding out how we can all best work together and communicate that, not just across our own companies and platforms, but for all of us that are providing nature-based solutions is really where I'm focused, because I see that these collaborations, we can take a village and turn it and make it not only sustainable. I mean, sustainable, I don't know about anybody else, but sustainable doesn't look that great anymore, because if we're sustaining this, it's not great. We need to regenerate and bring our resources back. And we as a group, even 3 to 5 of us together, really can actually flip huge pieces of water and land and get rid of masses of waste very quickly. But it's that re-education, and I think that is where I see the collaboration between all of us really benefiting everybody, is that re-education around what we actually are capable, what nature is capable of doing, because it's a fundamental change in how people have been doing things. Yes, Gordon.
Exactly.
Hear me.
Exactly. And for people that aren't part of the collaboration providing solutions here, you're even more important, because you need to communicate with us what you need solved, because that's all we need. And then we're solution oriented, and we're going to come to you with probably 4 different ways of solving that, depending on regulations, area, time frame, and so on. And when you talk about connectivity, I mentioned that project downtown Des Moines with the 8 feet of dirt and all the advantages and everything else. But what wasn't discussed is the groundwater that's 15 feet below that, that's running to the river that's going through town, that's just got issues. So, hey, if you bring in the right groups, why not go 13 feet deep, soak it so it bleeds the other 2 feet into the groundwater, and you get that circular, survivable, sustainable solution at once, looking long term. And that's the beautiful thing about Jennifer's mix and some of the other things that I haven't touched on. But her water mix and soil mix can interchange. So it's not like you have to stop it from going one place. Let it be. When you talk about circularity and connecting, prime example, dairy farmer, going to give 4 acres, going to provide 4 acre or 4 truckloads a day to make biochar on site. We're talking about cattle, manure, treating the feedlots, processing that manure much faster, odor control. Then that lagoon where the manure is in, processed, is now sprayed on the fields, but it's got Naturasolv and biochar in it now, and you've just increased their yield 30 to 70%. There's circularity and involvement, and everybody wants to be there. So I appreciate you all helping me connect all this, for sure.
And we're going to have a lot of data points coming up. When I go to the Philippines, it's funny you bring up those lagoons, Gordon. I bought my first hazmat suits and my first respirators, and I got some nasty shots because apparently where I'm headed has everything going on. monsoon season in the summer, but we're going to go be treating their wet food waste piles. Yum.
Oh,
Poultry
nice.
farms, hog farms, the coconuts, bananas, coffee, asparagus, carrots, just about everything. And so we're going to be recording all of that and putting together. We have developed test protocols, but we're going to be putting together training materials as well. So if you work in those areas, what we provide, like I said, it's just a catalyst to help speed the processes up so that other things can take hold. Our ideal is not being there forever. It's helping to restore the ecology and moving on. There's a lot of waste to be had, so there's no fear of that. But Corden, I really appreciate you. I think what you're doing here is brilliant, and I feel that the market is absolutely moving behind what we're all doing. And the more collaboration, conversations, and like you said, what can we do to help? Because we can run at these things all a bunch of different ways, and
Yep.
there's a ton of technologies here to help. It's really brilliant. I think it's necessary right now, and the only way we're going to get our resources back. So thank you for all you
Well,
do.
and what I love about what's happening, Jennifer, is all these companies have strengths and they're living in their world. And so whether you're a city manufacturer, collector, et cetera, when you come to the table, you're going to get a solution from them for their products and how to do it.
Yep.
What we're doing here is solution first, enabling all of our entrepreneurial spirits to take a step back and look at all the solutions to come up with the right one. And that's the value of our waters, because it will always be evolving. And thank you guys for helping me start this. This is really awesome.
Of course. Happy to be here, Court.
Does anybody have questions for us before we go? And again, thank you for coming. And who's the 617 phone number? Oh,
That's a
Anonymous.
Boston
well,
area code.
thank you.
It's anonymous.
Yeah, it's that person. I appreciate everybody's thing. If anybody has questions for me, reach out. It's very easy to find me online. Michael, thank you for coming.
My pleasure. Sorry I was
you and I
late.
need to
I'll see
catch
you
up
on
again
Thursday.
soon. Yeah, for sure. And yeah, Thursday, Friday,
Thursday.
the 9th.
I'm
9th.
going
What
to
day is
drop
that?
my email.
That's Friday.
Friday? Okay, Friday it is.
I'm sorry, my mind just froze. I'm like, wait a minute. No, that works. Yeah, there's her email. We're on LinkedIn. Connect with us, and thank you so much for taking your time with us.
Yep. Appreciate you, Corden. All right, we'll talk next soon on our project meeting this afternoon.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
appreciate you.
3 o'clock my time. See you soon.
Yes, sir. Bye-bye.
Bye.